Do you think race might be a factor?
Like my wife said, I don't want to believe that, but it's just it's so many things have happened, and so many things have been swept under the rug. Like I said, Nolan didn't see color. He saw people for who they are, and I used to always tell him, "So you need to guard that close, because everyone is not going to reciprocate that same love that you give." I just want transparency. I just want to know what happened to my son.
Christine, why does that make you so emotional?
Because he just had a big heart. Like, to really know Nolan, to have him as your friend it was something special. People aren't like him. He was just different. And
do you worry that he might have trusted too much?
sometimes, yeah. And that was something we always talked to him about.
Nolan Wells went to Horn Island with people he considered friends. When those friends returned to the Mississippi mainland, Nolan was not with them, but his phone was. So were his keys. The explanation was that Nolan had met a young woman during the 4th of July celebration and wanted to spend more time with her. His friends reportedly believed he would catch another boat home, but the 18-year-old college football player never caught that ride. One friend contacted the Coast Guard late that night. Nolan's mother reported him missing around midnight. Then 2 mornings later, a park ranger found his body in the water near the northwestern end of Horn Island. Authorities initially believed Nolan may have drowned. They said the evidence available at that stage had not established that a crime occurred. But Nolan's family could not move past one simple question. Why would their son deliberately remain on a remote island without his phone, his keys, or the friends who brought him there? And once they began looking closely at his final hours, the explanation became even more complicated. The young woman reportedly gave one impression of where Nolan intended to go. His friends gave another. Nolan's mother believed content may have disappeared from his phone. A viral video appeared to show an argument over that phone. Then one of Nolan's closest friends claimed the public had identified the wrong voice in the video. And underneath all of those contradictions was another fact that transformed the case into a national controversy. Nolan was a young black man at a crowded gathering where nearly everyone visible around him appeared to be white. So was this a tragic drowning created by poor decisions and confusion? Was Nolan dangerously abandoned because everyone assumed someone else would bring him home? Or did something happen on Horn Island that witnesses have still not completely explained? Before we go deeper, subscribe to Crime Scene Exposed for real stories where loyalty, secrets, and conflicting accounts leave families fighting for the truth. Because Nolan's case did not begin with an obvious enemy. It began with friends.
I do want to say this. I would hope that any parent who, God forbid, would be in our situation, I would hope that you would do the same thing. I would hope that you would ask for any help, receive any help to get answers, because at the end of the day, that's all we want. We just want to know. We just want to know what happened and why our baby didn't come home. Like that's our biggest thing.
What we've been told does not make sense. And being that there is lack of confidence in the local authorities, who have already, in my judgment, seemed to have mishandled where it was going. Because to just immediately, before a week time, saying there was nothing done wrong, when we hear that this young man was engaged in some kind of argument that was on tape, that his cell phone and keys ended up with one of the people that were there on the island and got away. He was one black with 3 young white men who happened to end up with his phone, happened to end up with his keys. Then there's just too many questions that they should not be closing the investigation. My nose is out here, my eyes are here, my brain is here, which means some things I could smell before I could see and before I can figure out. This does not smell right. So some people are saying, Reverend, are y'all bringing in race? Well, we're not bringing in race, but we're not discounting race either, because we don't know what it is. So to tell us don't rush to judgment saying it was racist is fine. But then I'm telling you, don't rush to judgment saying it was not racism.
Nolan Xavier Wells was 18 years old and only weeks away from his 19th birthday. He had graduated from Ocean Springs High School and continued playing football as a wide receiver at Southwest Mississippi Community College. Football was more than a casual hobby. Nolan reportedly dreamed of advancing to a higher-level college program and continuing to prove what he could do on the field. His coach remembered someone who rarely seemed to have a bad day. Nolan would enter the office, sit down, and talk simply because he enjoyed being around people. That description matched what his parents said about him. Nolan was sociable. He could speak to almost anyone. He did not have to know someone for years before treating that person like a friend. His mother, Christine Wansley, described him as a bright presence whose energy affected the people around him. His father, Elmore, remembered a loving son with a large heart. Nolan was also described as a peacemaker. His family had taught him about race and the history of the place where he was growing up, but they said Nolan did not enjoy division. He wanted people included. He was not known as someone constantly searching for confrontation. The night before the boat trip, Nolan visited his parents. He prepared salmon for them, spent time at the house, and hugged his mother before leaving. Nothing about that goodbye suggested Christine was seeing her son for the final time. The next morning, Nolan joined a group of friends for a 4th of July boat trip to Horn Island. Horn Island is several miles off Mississippi's Gulf Coast. It is beautiful, isolated, and largely undeveloped. Visitors cannot simply call a taxi when they are ready to leave. They arrive by boat, and they depend on a boat to return. There are no streets filled with security cameras. Cell phone reception can be unreliable. Once crowds begin leaving, an area that felt like a large beach party during the afternoon can quickly become remote. That day, however, Nolan was not alone. He traveled with young men he had known since high school. One of them, Trace's Tin Shepard, later described Nolan as his best friend. Shepard said the outing was supposed to be one final celebration before different members of the group returned to work or school. Pictures from a day showed Nolan smiling with 3 white male friends. At the time, it looked like an ordinary image of young people enjoying a holiday. After Nolan died, people began examining that photograph as though every expression contained a warning. But there was nothing visibly sinister in the picture itself. Nolan appeared comfortable. His arms were around people who later insisted they loved him. Several boats reportedly carried friends and acquaintances to the island. Alcohol was consumed during the day. People swam, moved between social groups, and gathered near the boats. Shepard estimated that hundreds of people were in their section of Horn Island. It was exactly the type of environment where one person could briefly disappear into a crowd without immediately causing alarm. It was also the type of environment where a careless assumption could become deadly. During the celebration, Nolan met a young woman. Shepard said Nolan appeared interested in her. They had apparently met that day, and Nolan wanted to continue spending time with her. As the original group prepared to return to the mainland, the friends said Nolan decided to remain behind. Their version was straightforward. Nolan liked the girl. Nolan wanted to stay. Nolan believed he could return later with another group. His friends left the island thinking he had made his own arrangement. Witnesses reportedly gave investigators a similar general explanation, and Sheriff John Ledbetter said the information available suggested Nolan had chosen to remain. That could have been exactly what happened. An 18-year-old meets someone at a holiday party, makes a spontaneous decision, and assumes another boat will be available. Young people make choices like that every day. But the story becomes less comfortable when one question is added. Who, specifically, agreed to take Nolan home? Not which crowd might have space. Not which stranger owned a boat. Not who people assumed would help him. Who accepted responsibility for returning him to the mainland? That answer has not been publicly established. And Nolan's parents did not believe their son would knowingly place himself in such an uncertain position. Elmore said he had always taught Nolan that if he traveled with a group, he should remain with that group. His parents understood that Nolan was social. They understood that he might meet someone new. What they could not understand was why he would allow his original ride to disappear across the water without confirming exactly how he was getting back. Then Ben Crump, the civil rights attorney retained by Nolan's family, raised an even more disturbing issue.
The young woman he was talking to says that, well, Nolan said he was going back to get on the boat with the boys. The boys say that Nolan told them he was going to stay and talk to the young woman. It's a contradiction.
The family also questions why the other teens had possession of Wells's car keys and cell phone.
I asked him, he said he went and looked, and so when he said he couldn't find them, I did what I needed. I left out of their home. And like I said, 5 minutes later, he come back out with the keys.
Crump said the young woman Nolan had been speaking to gave an account suggesting Nolan planned to return to the boat with his male friends. But those friends said Nolan chose to stay with her. Those two versions created a gap that could not be ignored. The friends reportedly believed Nolan was remaining with the young woman. The young woman reportedly believed Nolan was returning to his friends. If both sides genuinely believe their own version, Nolan may have been caught between two groups, each assuming he belonged to the other. Nobody has publicly released the young woman's complete statement. Investigators have not accused her of lying. They have not accused Nolan's friends of lying either. It is possible that the difference came from a brief conversation, a misunderstanding, or people remembering the same chaotic moment differently. But one fact remained unchanged. When the original boat left, no clearly identified person had publicly confirmed responsibility for Nolan. And Nolan's most important belongings were no longer within his reach. Nolan's family and attorneys said his phone and keys ended up on the mainland. That detail immediately made the story look darker. What teenager chooses to remain on an isolated island without a phone? How was Nolan supposed to contact the friends who had left? How was he supposed to tell his mother he would be late? And if the promised ride failed to appear, how was he supposed to ask for help? Shepard later offered an explanation that many early social media posts had omitted. He said Nolan had left his phone on one of the boats because the group expected to spend much of the day swimming. Other people had reportedly done the same thing to prevent their devices from being damaged or lost in the water. That explanation made sense for the afternoon. It did not fully explain the departure. Someone knew the phone was on the boat. Someone drove that boat away. Did Nolan realize his phone was leaving? Did his friends remember it only after reaching a mainland? Did everyone believe the person staying behind had access to another device? The phone alone did not prove that anyone intended to isolate Nolan, but it showed that the plan to leave him behind, if there truly was a plan, had not been carefully arranged. At approximately 3 p.m., Nolan was last known to be on Horn Island. After that, the public timeline breaks apart. There's no complete, verified account of what he did during the following hours. Did he continue talking with the young woman? Did he walk back toward the boats and discover that his friends had already left? Did the woman depart with another group? Did Nolan expect a ride that never came? Did he ask someone else for help? Was he seen alone? Did he enter the water to swim? Did he fall? Did alcohol, exhaustion, or current place him in danger? Somebody may know the answer to one of those questions. But no witness has publicly described Nolan's entire evening from the moment his friends departed to the moment he disappeared. That silent stretch of time is where the truth is hiding. At around 11 p.m., a friend contacted the Coast Guard. The agency later said that particular call did not require Coast Guard assistance, but it did not publicly reveal the complete substance of the conversation. Around midnight, Christine contacted the Jackson County Sheriff's Office because her son had not returned. By then, approximately 9 hours had passed since Nolan's last reported sighting. The boats that had surrounded Horn Island were disappearing. Witnesses were spreading across the mainland. The tide was changing. People who might have seen Nolan without realizing he was missing were going home. Nolan's father went out searching near Horn Island on the morning of July 5th. Multiple agencies eventually joined the effort, including the Coast Guard, park personnel, marine officials, firefighters, and volunteers. The search expanded across the island and surrounding water. On Monday, July 6th, crews returned early. At approximately 8:45 that morning, a National Park Service ranger found a body near the northwestern tip of Horn Island. Nolan's family was called to the Lake Mars boat launch. They were later taken to the coroner's office. The body was Nolan's. Dental records confirmed what his parents already feared. The teenager who had traveled to Horn Island for a holiday celebration had been found dead near the place where his friends said he chose to remain. Investigators initially believed Nolan may have drowned. They said they had not found evidence at that stage establishing that a crime occurred. The official autopsy was conducted on July 7th, but toxicology and other testing were still pending. For Nolan's parents, drowning was not a complete explanation. They said Nolan knew how to swim. Of course, swimmers can still drown. Water does not care how athletic someone is. Alcohol, fatigue, panic, currents, or an unexpected medical problem can overwhelm even a confident swimmer. But Nolan's family was not only asking what physically ended his life. They wanted to know what placed him in the water. Was he swimming for pleasure? Was he trying to reach a boat? Was he injured? Was he alone? Did anyone see him struggling? Hundreds of people had reportedly been on or around the island during the celebration. How could Nolan disappear without one person clearly explaining his final movement? And if he did drown in view of a crowded gathering, why did nobody report seeing it happen? Those questions did not prove foul play. They did justify a deeper investigation. The family's suspicions grew stronger when Christine began searching for Nolan's phone. Using the Life 360 tracking application, the family determined that the device had reached the mainland. A friend helped retrieve it. When Christine and her sister examined the phone, they focused on Snapchat. Nolan was known for taking photographs and videos at social events. His mother said he could walk up to her while she was preparing for bed and suddenly ask to take a picture. That was Nolan. He documented moments. So Christine expected the 4th of July celebration to have left some kind of digital trail. Nolan reportedly had 2 Snapchat accounts. His mother said that when she opened them, she found no recent saved photographs, videos, or visible activity from the outing. She believed she checked before the usual 24-hour Snapchat expiration period had passed. To her, the emptiness felt wrong.
He finally got his phone. Me and my sister went through the phone. We went in his Snapchat. He had 2 accounts, absolutely nothing. It wasn't even 24 hours, which is how long videos and pictures stay in Snapchat. And I was just like, that can't be. Like, I've seen Nolan whenever he snaps, like when he goes and he's having fun, like he does videos. Like, there was absolutely nothing, no saved videos. And even my sister was like, yeah, that's suspicious,
Michael,
you know.
We're having an independent autopsy done at the behest of his family. Colin Kaepernick helped pay for the independent autopsy. We flew his body up from Mississippi to D.C. because they wanted an autopsy done by a person with no interaction with the Mississippi law enforcement, because there's an issue of trust here that is really important. And the fact that they keep trying to say, well, suggesting it was a drowning, but nobody out there reported him drowning, it's not adding up, Michael Strahan. It is not adding up.
And honestly, we are doing this because at the end of the day, I would hope any parent would fight for their kids to find out if anything happened, what did happen. So we just want honesty and transparency. We want a thorough investigation. We want that same respect that would be given to anybody else, and that's it. We just want answers.
The family began questioning whether someone had deleted content while Nolan was missing. Online, that concern was quickly transformed into an accusation. People began stating that the friends had erased evidence from Nolan's phone. But that has not been proven. An apparently empty Snapchat account does not automatically establish deletion. Nolan may not have saved what he recorded. Material may have been sent privately. Some content may have expired, been removed by Nolan himself, or existed in areas the family did not immediately access. The phone requires a forensic examination. That examination may show whether data was deleted when it disappeared, who accessed the device, and what Nolan's final communications revealed. Until that process is complete, the responsible claim is that Nolan's family noticed missing content and became suspicious. He is not responsible to declare that his friends destroyed evidence. But then a video surfaced that appeared to support the family's fear. The clip showed commotion near boats on Horn Island. Voices were raised. An argument appeared to be unfolding. Crump initially discussed the recording as though Nolan could be heard demanding his phone back.
In this video of this, you can hear an argument going where Nolan is saying, give me my freaking phone. What are you freaking doing? And so then his phone ends up missing. I don't know any teenagers, Michael Strahan, who says, if you believe their story, I'm going to stay behind and I'm going to leave my phone. I mean, no young person leaves their cell phone.
That interpretation changed the entire public mood. If Nolan had been arguing over his phone, then perhaps the device had not been innocently forgotten on a boat. Perhaps someone had taken it. Perhaps Nolan had tried to retrieve it. And perhaps the confrontation had something to do with why he was later left behind. The theory moved quickly because it seemed to connect every disturbing detail. The missing phone, the conflicting stories, the friends leaving, Nolan's death. Some online creators stopped asking questions and began announcing conclusions. Captions appeared claiming Nolan had been beaten to death. But no released autopsy finding had confirmed that Nolan was beaten. No person had been arrested for assaulting him. No investigator had classified the death as a homicide. Then Traciston Shepard broke his silence and challenged the video's central claim. Shepard said the voice heard shouting in the recording was his, not Nolan's. He acknowledged that an altercation occurred but claimed it was a separate dispute involving him. He said Nolan was not shown in the video.
Tonight we're hearing from a friend of Nolan Wells who was with the 18-year-old on that isolated barrier island off the Mississippi Gulf Coast July 4th, the last day Wells was seen alive.
It breaks our heart that we can't even fully grieve our friend because we're scared.
Traciston Shepard says he and his friends are now getting threats, and he declined to speak with us on camera. But he addressed this social media video that's part of the investigation. Shepard says he's the one heard arguing from the boat, not Wells.
That's the video I'm referring to. That's me yelling.
Shepard says he took a boat back from Horn Island in the late afternoon, but Wells stayed behind with a girl he had met. Wells did not have his phone, but his friend tells us that's not unusual while swimming.
When Nolan got in the water, he put his phone on the dash, also with probably other 15 phones.
His parents say Nolan Wells went nowhere without his phone, but on July 4th, he left it behind in the boat. We're in about 2-3 feet of water, and so people hop over the edge and swim to shore.
If Shepard was telling the truth, the viral clip did not capture Nolan fighting for his phone. It captured another confrontation happening inside a crowded, alcohol-filled gathering. That distinction was enormous. The video may still reveal something about the atmosphere on Horn Island. It may help investigators identify people and place them at specific locations. But it cannot be treated as proof that Nolan was attacked unless experts and witnesses establish that he was actually involved. The viral misinformation did not end there. A separate photograph from a pool gathering began circulating as though it had been taken on July 4th and somehow revealed what happened before Nolan's death. Shepard said the photograph was taken on June 27th. Reporting indicated that the image's metadata supported the earlier date. People had apparently confused the date it was posted with the date it was captured. The internet had taken a photograph from another day and pulled it into Nolan's final timeline because it fit the story people were already telling themselves. That was the danger surrounding this case. Real questions were being buried beneath fake certainty. Correcting the video did not explain why Nolan died. Correcting the photograph did not prove every witness had told the truth. It only proved how carefully every piece of evidence needed to be examined. So let me ask you this. Does the disputed video weaken the family's suspicions? Or does it show why the public should stop building conclusions from social media clips and demand verified evidence instead? Tell me which detail you believe investigators must resolve first, the young woman's account, the unexplained hours, or the phone. While people argued over the video, a larger and more painful controversy was growing. Nolan Wells was black. The 3 male friends shown traveling with him were white. And from the photographs and videos reviewed by Nolan's family and legal team, the 4th of July gathering appeared overwhelmingly white. Race did not automatically explain Nolan's death, but it affected how his family and many members of the public interpreted everything that followed. A black teenager entered a mostly white social environment. His friends left without him. His phone and keys reached the mainland. His body was found 2 days later. And before the official autopsy results had been completed, authorities publicly indicated that they did not suspect foul play. For many black families, that sequence activated a deep and familiar distrust. Ben Crump asked people to imagine the racial roles reversed. What would have happened if 3 young black men returned from an island with the belongings of a white friend who was later found dead? Would authorities have accepted their initial explanation as easily? Would their phones have been taken immediately? How many times would they have been questioned? Would the public have described them as grieving friends or immediate suspects? That comparison did not prove Nolan's white friends had received special treatment. It exposed why the family wanted to know exactly how aggressively every possibility had been investigated. Mississippi's racial history intensified that distrust. Nolan's parents had raised their son with an understanding that being accepted socially did not always mean being equally protected when something went wrong. Yet Nolan reportedly moved comfortably between racial groups. He was friendly, open, inclusive. That was part of what made his death especially painful. His willingness to trust people was now being examined as though it might have placed him in danger. Some of the interviews shared after his death went further than Crump's questions. Community members claimed the case was racial. Some believed Nolan had been attacked because he was black. Others suggested that white witnesses on the island were protecting one another. A few accused the friends of participating in a cover-up. Those are serious allegations. They have not been established as fact. Investigators have not announced evidence proving that Nolan was assaulted because of his race. They have not charged anyone with harming him. The official cause and manner of death remained pending as of July 15, 2026. But racial motive is not the only racial question in this story. Race could also influence whether Nolan was treated as an outsider, whether someone noticed him struggling, whether his disappearance was considered urgent, whether the people around him felt responsible for his safety, and whether his family believed the initial response gave their son the same scrutiny another victim might have received. Race may ultimately have nothing to do with how Nolan entered the water. But dismissing the family's concerns before the investigation is complete would be another form of rushing to judgment. Reverend Al Sharpton offered a careful position. Nobody should claim without evidence that racism killed Nolan. But nobody should announce that race played no role before all the evidence has been examined. Between those two extremes was the only honest position available. Investigate everything. As suspicion grew, Nolan's friends found themselves under enormous pressure. Shepard eventually spoke publicly without showing his face. He said members of the group had received threats and were afraid of what strangers might do to them. He insisted that the group loved Nolan. He said nobody wanted to see him harmed and that they were grieving the loss of someone they considered a best friend. His message was simple: they had done nothing wrong. But the public was not only judging whether the friends intentionally harmed Nolan. People were judging the decision to leave at all. Friendship does not automatically make someone responsible for every choice another adult makes. Nolan was 18. If he clearly said he wanted to stay and had confirmed transportation, his friends may have believed they were respecting his decision. But if the ride was only an assumption, leaving became much harder to defend. There is a difference between saying, "Someone here will probably take him," and hearing a specific person say, "I am taking Nolan back." There is a difference between watching your friend walk away safely with another group and departing without knowing exactly where he is. There is a difference between believing a phone is unnecessary for swimming and leaving that phone on the mainland while its owner remains miles offshore. None of those differences proves murder. They do raise questions about responsibility. Friends can genuinely love someone and still make a disastrous decision. People can tell the truth as they remember it and still fail to notice that their stories do not align. Alcohol can distort memory. Crowds can create confusion. Everyone can assume someone else is paying attention until the person they all saw earlier is suddenly gone. That possibility may be less sensational than a planned attack. It may also be closer to the truth. Investigators continued interviewing witnesses and collecting photographs and videos. Sheriff Ledbetter urged anyone who had been near the northwestern section of Horn Island to provide original, unedited material. The department said the investigation remained open. The official autopsy had been performed, but the results were not yet complete. Toxicology testing could take weeks. Nolan's family commissioned an independent autopsy because they wanted an opinion separate from Mississippi authorities. Colin Kaepernick helped fund that examination. Crump's team also retained experts to examine the phone. On July 15th, Nolan's parents met with Jackson County District Attorney Angel Myers McElrath. Afterward, Crump announced that the family's experts and local investigators would conduct a mutual inspection of Nolan's device. That examination could determine whether anything was removed and may reveal Nolan's final messages, movements, and contacts. The district attorney explained that after the sheriff's investigation is completed, the evidence will be presented to a grand jury. Officials described that as standard procedure for many suspicious or unnatural deaths in Jackson County. A grand jury review does not mean prosecutors have concluded that Nolan was murdered. It means the evidence will be considered before a final decision is made about whether any crime can be prosecuted. As of that meeting, no one had been arrested or charged in connection with Nolan's death. The family still did not have the answer it wanted most. How did Nolan end up in the water? But by then, Nolan's parents were no longer asking questions alone. On July 12th, hundreds of people marched through Ocean Springs. They carried signs bearing Nolan's name. They demanded transparency. They challenged the idea that his death should be accepted as an uncomplicated drowning before the medical evidence and full timeline were known. For some demonstrators, the march was about race. They believed a black teenager had disappeared from a mostly white gathering and that his death would not receive the scrutiny it deserved unless the community created pressure. For others, the march was not a declaration that Nolan had been murdered. It was a refusal to allow uncertainty to become silence.
Hey, Nolan Wells! Hey, Nolan Wells! Hey, Nolan Wells! Hey, Nolan Wells! Yes, sir, Nolan Wells! Yes, sir, Nolan Wells! And 200 years! And 200 years! Yes, sir, Nolan Wells! Yes, sir, Nolan Wells! 1619! 1619! Yes, sir, here we go! Hey, Nolan Wells! Yes, sir, know the truth. You're right.
Peaceful protests calling for more transparency in the Nolan Wells investigation was held Saturday evening in Mississippi. The parents are seeking answers about what led to the death of their son. Wells' body was found after a 4th of July boat trip with friends to Horn Island in Mississippi. The death has sparked speculation after his friends returned from the trip without him. Patrick Wright reports.
The goal of today's protest, I feel like, would be just to say his name.
Yes, sir, Nolan Wells!
For me, this means a whole lot because I have my kids in this community too.
Hey, Nolan Wells!
I'm a mom, I have 2 sons, so it hit home for me.
Nolan Wells could have easily been my grandson.
Yes, sir,
I feel like today's testament is that we want answers. It's not about vengeance, it's not about accusations, it's about the truth and it's about transparency.
We're going to stand behind the family, and that's why we're out here.
No peace!
A lot of times, these stories go unnoticed.
Because Nolan Wells is not the only one. There has been a long historic string of young black men losing their life under very suspicious circumstances.
I am the family of Emmett Till. And my family is here in support of what's going on because this young man should not be dead.
No justice! No peace!
So I know him personally as a kid before he went out to college. It's hard in this generation to find kids that still say yes sir, no sir.
Nolan Wells!
And when he came to me and wanted to work, he said, you know, my mom and dad told me I gotta get my own money. And I said, but when you go out to college, I want you to make good choices and decisions to set you up for a lifetime. And he said, yes sir. That says a lot about his home life. It says a lot about his parents, and it says a lot about him. The things that he did while he was here on earth, it left a statement in a place in a lot of people's heart. Life is precious, no matter what color you are.
That's a fact.
We just need to get to the facts of what really happened. That's really what it's about, the facts. It's not about the color of the skin, it's about sticking to the facts of whatever it is. And if it's something that happened as a mistake, then just let's speak about it. Let's talk about it. That's it. I'd just like to say to him and his soul, man, rest in peace, and we always love you, man. And you did everything you could while you was here, and you did a great job. That's it.
The case had now moved from a private family tragedy into the streets. Nolan's photograph was no longer only being shared by relatives and teammates. It appeared on signs, news broadcasts, and social media pages across the country. Ben Crump stood with the family. Reverend Al Sharpton joined their demand for answers. Spike Lee appeared at the family's New York news conference. Tyler Perry offered to pay Nolan's funeral expenses. Colin Kaepernick supported the independent autopsy. The attention brought resources and national pressure. It also intensified the accusations aimed at Nolan's friends. People online called them killers and racists before the forensic evidence had been released. Threats followed. The same public pressure that Nolan's family believed was necessary to uncover the truth had also created fear among young people who insisted they were innocent. That was the emotional collision at the center of the case. Nolan's parents feared the system would move too quickly and classify their son's death as an accident. His friends feared the internet had already convicted them of murder. Both groups claimed to love Nolan. Only one of them returned from Horn Island, knowing what had happened before they left. And none of them could publicly explain what happened afterward. Christine asked supporters to keep every protest peaceful. She said Nolan was not someone who wanted fighting or violence. Even while demanding justice, she did not want her son's name used as permission to hurt anyone else. That request revealed something the arguments often forgot. Nolan was not a symbol created for public debate. He was a person whose family was trying to bury him. His funeral was scheduled for Monday, July 20th, at Centerpoint Church in Ocean Springs. After the service, the family planned a celebration of his life for relatives, friends, and former teammates. Christine said Nolan would not want everyone sitting around crying. She wanted people to remember his energy, his smile, the football player who still had more to prove, the son who cooked salmon for his parents the night before his final trip, the young man who could walk into an office simply because he wanted to talk. But celebrating Nolan's life did not erase the family's need for answers. His parents were still waiting for the official autopsy. They were waiting for the independent findings. They were waiting for the examination of his phone. They were waiting for investigators to reconcile the different accounts of why Nolan remained on Horn Island. And they were waiting for someone to explain how their son disappeared from a gathering filled with people without one clear witness describing his final moments. There may be an innocent explanation for every suspicious detail. The young woman may have misunderstood Nolan. His friends may have genuinely believed he had a secure ride. The phone may have been forgotten because everyone had been swimming. The missing Snapchat content may never have existed. The disputed video may have had nothing to do with Nolan. And Nolan may have entered the water alone and drowned without anyone realizing he needed help. But an innocent explanation must still be an explanation. It cannot be a collection of assumptions. Nolan's family deserves a complete timeline, not because social media has already decided a crime occurred, but because an 18-year-old traveled to an island with friends and never returned. Do you believe Nolan knowingly chose to remain for the young woman? Or do the conflicting accounts suggest that everyone has not shared the complete story? Do you believe his friends made an innocent mistake, a reckless decision, or something more serious? And when a young black man disappears from a mostly white gathering, should race immediately become part of the investigation, or only after direct evidence of racial hostility appears? Share your opinion respectfully. No viewer has enough evidence to convict anyone. But Nolan's family has every right to question why his phone came home, his friends came home, and their son did not. Subscribe to Crime Scene Exposed as we continue following the autopsy results, the phone examination, and every verified development in the death of Nolan Xavier Wells.